As we move into prevention strategies, we want to connect back to what we just discussed. We explored how behavior is driven by motivation and how tools like establishing operations, EOs, and abolishing operations, AOs, can be used to influence motivation. We also talked about adjusting the environment to decrease unwanted behavior. Now we're shifting from understanding why behavior happens to exploring what we can do proactively to reduce the chances of challenging behavior occurring and increase the chances of replacement behaviors being successful. Prevention strategies are supports we build into the environment ahead of time. Instead of reacting to problem behavior, we focus on reducing triggers, meeting student needs proactively, and increasing the likelihood of positive behavior. In this section, we will explore practical strategies that make appropriate behavior easier and reduce the need for problem behavior. Prevention strategies are proactive actions designed to reduce the chances that challenging behavior will occur. The goal is to create supportive environments and routines that meet students' needs in positive, appropriate ways. In this module, we'll focus on using setting event and antecedent strategies, and later, selecting replacement behaviors. We'll walk through each strategy and learn how to match the right supports to student needs. This visual shows the competing behavior pathway, which is a helpful tool for deciding where prevention strategies should go. We want to focus on the start of the pathway, setting events and antecedents. Setting events are things like poor sleep, medication changes, or a stressful morning. Antecedents are more immediate triggers, such as being told to stop an activity or begin a difficult task. You practiced identifying these in the September module. Now, we'll focus on how prevention strategies are matched to these points. For example, if a student struggles during transitions, we might add visual reminders. If loud environments are a trigger, we might reduce auditory input or use noise-canceling headphones. Targeting these early in the pathway helps reduce problem behavior and increases opportunities to teach and reinforce positive behaviors. Why do we prioritize prevention first? Prevention reduces the need for reactive interventions. When we address behavior before it happens, we rely less on responding after the fact, which can be less effective or even escalate the issue. Second, prevention promotes positive behavior. A supportive environment makes it easier for students to behave appropriately. Third, it decreases the chances of problem behavior occurring. When we address the root causes, students learn skills that last beyond the moment. Finally, it's less disruptive. Preventing behavior saves time and creates a calmer, more productive learning environment. Prevention is our strongest ally. It allows the team to avoid triggering situations and helps the student stay in a happy, relaxed, and engaged state. This is the optimal state for learning. When students feel calm and safe, they are more open to learning the replacement behaviors identified in their behavior intervention plan. Prevention leads to more positive outcomes and long-term behavior change. Setting events are conditions that increase a student's vulnerability to reacting negatively when a trigger occurs. They do not cause the behavior directly, but they make it more likely. Setting events often influence how strong or weak a reinforcer is. Common examples include poor sleep, hunger, and a rough morning at home. Our goal is to reduce the impact of these events. For example, if a student didn't sleep well the night before, now they are tired, a break or escape from work is more valuable. It makes behavior like refusing to work more likely. So, implementing a setting event strategy that allows for breaks or by adjusting expectations, we can preventatively reduce the challenging behavior of work refusal. If a student arrives upset, we might offer a calming routine before instruction begins. Addressing these setting events improves the chances for positive behavior later in the day. We can't control what happens outside of school, but we can respond to it. Some ways to do this include using daily check-ins and family communication to gather information about possible setting events, offering flexible routines such as starting the day with calming tasks, providing quiet, low-stimulation spaces where students can regulate, and maintaining consistent, predictable routines to provide stability for students who may have unpredictable home environments. These strategies reduce the impact of external stressors that can influence behavior. Antecedent strategies are proactive changes made to what happens immediately before a behavior. These strategies help reduce the likelihood of problem behavior. To use them effectively, start by identifying the trigger, what happens just before the behavior. Next, modify the task or environment. You might change the materials, how directions are given, or how tasks are scheduled. Offer supports before the trigger, such as visual cues, prompts, choices, or brief check-ins. Finally, ensure consistency. These strategies should be used every time the triggering situation arises to help students learn more appropriate behaviors. Examples of antecedent strategies include modifying the environment, such as reducing clutter or distractions, and using visuals to provide structure. Offering choices is another powerful strategy. Students can be given task choices, such as the order of assignments, material choices such as writing with pencils or typing, seating choices such as standing or sitting, and activity choices, like writing, drawing, or using technology to complete work. Providing choice increases student engagement and reduces the likelihood of problem behavior related to task avoidance. Additional antecedent strategies include adjusting task demands and using reinforcement-based strategies. To adjust tasks, break them into smaller parts, offer additional time, or scaffold with prompts and models. Reinforcement-based strategies include non-contingent reinforcement, which provides reinforcement on a schedule regardless of behavior. First, then strategy, which offers a preferred activity after a non-preferred one, for example, first math, then iPad. And behavior momentum, which involves starting with easy, high-probability tasks to build confidence before harder tasks. These techniques help make tasks feel more manageable and reduce frustration that could lead to behavior. We can also modify how we present tasks to prevent problem behavior. For example, allow verbal instead of written responses for students with fine motor challenges. Modify transitions by using countdowns, transition objects, or visual cues to reduce anxiety. Address sensory needs by offering breaks, fidgets, or movement opportunities to help students stay regulated. Use high-probability request sequences, where students begin with tasks they've already mastered before moving on to new or more challenging tasks. These changes reduce the likelihood that a situation becomes a behavioral trigger. In the next section, we'll learn how to identify which prevention strategies are needed for each individual student. Prevention must be tailored to match the student's specific needs and behavioral triggers. Start by conducting an environmental assessment. Review the student's Functional Behavior Assessment, FBA, for information about triggers related to classroom setup, noise levels, peer interactions, or academic demands. Use ABC data to pinpoint the times and locations where problem behavior occurs. Interview or survey the student to learn about preferences, dislikes, and potential sources of stress. Assess the physical, social, and instructional environments. This information helps the team determine which changes will be most effective in preventing problem behavior. To assess the physical environment, you can use a classroom environment checklist to examine seating, lighting, noise levels, and accessibility. You can also conduct a sensory profile, like the Dunn Sensory Profile, which is available through Idaho SESTA Assessment Lending Library. The Idaho SESTA Assessment Lending Library is a free resource that offers a large menu of assessments. You can find the list of assessments and link in the related content section of this module in Canvas. Analyze how the space is used, checking for crowded areas, transitions, or seating arrangements that may contribute to behavior. These tools help identify environmental conditions that may be causing or increasing the likelihood of problem behavior. To improve the social environment, consider using tools like the BASC-3, Vineland, or even an AFLS to assess the student's social, communication, or emotional regulation skills. Collect input from staff or peers to identify social triggers, such as bullying or isolation. Use this information to determine what skills need to be taught and reinforced. Understanding the student's social needs helps prevent behaviors that result from miscommunication, frustration, or social confusion. To assess the instructional environment, use an engagement and task analysis checklist to understand why a student might be disengaging from instruction. Evaluate the clarity of instruction, relevance of tasks, and availability of environmental supports. Use curriculum-based assessments to track the student's academic performance in real time. Based on the results, consider adding visuals, offering student choice, breaking down tasks into steps, or simplifying the language in assignments. These changes can increase engagement and reduce behavior driven by academic frustration or confusion. We want to ensure that we are relying on data-driven decision-making. It's important to consult ABC data to monitor for setting events and triggers. Input from teachers, paraprofessionals, and families is also valuable. One effective method is to implement a formal data collection system that tracks setting events and identifies patterns over time. This allows the team to adjust prevention strategies accordingly. The goal is to create an adaptable plan that proactively addresses triggers by continuously relying on data for informed decisions. Remember, prevention is our strongest ally. When we decrease the likelihood of challenging behavior, students can better engage in learning, and there's less need for reactive strategies. By now, you're familiar with the Behavior Intervention Strategies tool. In this tool, you'll find antecedent strategies that are matched to the function of behavior. Think of it as a menu that links challenging behavior and its function to a function-based prevention strategy. This slide presents examples of antecedent-based strategies organized by behavioral function. It outlines specific strategies that adults can implement based on the function of the behavior. This tool is especially useful when developing the prevention strategies section of a student's behavior intervention plan. The key to reducing problem behavior is meeting the student's needs before they feel the urge to act out. When we take a proactive approach to intervention, we are not just reacting to behavior, we're preventing it altogether. By identifying triggers, or the things that set off challenging behavior, we can design prevention strategies that directly address them. For example, if a student struggles with transitions, we can plan for extra time, use visual supports, or create predictable routines. Matching prevention strategies to specific triggers allows us to address the root cause of behavior instead of merely managing symptoms. This approach is student-centered. It focuses on meeting individual needs and preventing issues before they escalate. When completing a behavior intervention plan, Step 3 involves outlining preventative strategies and antecedent interventions. Unfortunately, this step is often underemphasized when planning for behavior change. Having a clear and specific prevention plan is critical to making meaningful change. This slide shows a completed example of Step 3 in a behavior intervention plan. It demonstrates how prevention strategies are documented clearly and aligned with behavioral data. When developing prevention strategies in a BIP, they must connect directly to the antecedent and why components identified in the FBA hypothesis statement. This makes sure that strategies are function-based and truly address the root cause. Here's how to apply that guidance using the TATE rubric on the slide. First, make sure the strategy matches the hypothesis. For example, if the hypothesis states that a student engages in behavior to escape difficult tasks, a matching prevention strategy could be to provide task modifications, offer breaks before the student becomes overwhelmed, or increase predictability. Avoid generic strategies that don't relate to the function. Next, use strategies that change or prevent the antecedent. Focus on what happens right before the behavior. For example, if transitions are a trigger, a function-based strategy might include using a visual countdown and previewing what comes next. Be specific and clear. Vague strategies like use motivation are not sufficient. The strategy should clearly outline what is being done, when, and by whom. Emphasize environmental changes rather than student compliance. Prevention strategies are about modifying the environment to reduce the likelihood of behavior, not about forcing the student to behave. For instance, instead of saying, remind the student to behave, a more effective strategy would be, offer a choice of seating location at the start of class to reduce anxiety. To check for alignment, use this rubric to review your draft BIP. Ask yourself, does the prevention strategy clearly relate to the function and antecedents described in the hypothesis? If not, revise it to strengthen the connection and secures that it meets the student's needs. Now that we've created a plan to address setting events and antecedent triggers, the next step is to follow a systematic process for implementing those prevention strategies. First, we train staff. This step matters because consistency among staff makes sure that prevention strategies are implemented effectively. When all staff respond in the same way, students experience predictable support, which helps the strategies succeed. We implement training by conducting team sessions during staff meetings or professional development. We provide written guidelines on how to apply each strategy. We also model and role-play interventions with staff and create quick reference guides for commonly used prevention strategies to keep in classrooms. Next, we embed strategies into everyday routines. This is important because prevention works best when it is a natural part of daily interactions, not something used only when behaviors arise. Students thrive on structure and predictability. To embed prevention strategies, we establish consistent routines, such as morning check-ins, transition warnings, and scheduled breaks. We use strategies proactively, not just when behavior escalates. We ensure all staff use consistent cues, timers, visuals, and first-then prompting. We also plan ahead for known triggers like testing days or schedule changes. We then monitor the effectiveness of these strategies. This matters because data helps teams determine whether prevention strategies are actually working. We need to know, are these strategies reducing behavior? Are they helping the student? To monitor effectively, We use behavior tracking sheets to log when problem behaviors do and don't occur. We collect ABC data to determine if prevention strategies are reducing triggers. Teachers and paraprofessionals provide feedback on what's working and what's not. Team meetings are used to review data and make necessary adjustments. We also adjust strategies as needed. Every student is different, and strategies may need to evolve over time. If a strategy is not reducing problem behavior, it may need to be changed. Regular data reviews help identify if the strategy is being implemented consistently, if the student is responding, and if modifications are needed. We can do this at regularly scheduled check-in meetings or by creating a weekly or bi-weekly review schedule. We make data-driven decisions by identifying patterns, whether the strategy is being used consistently, and whether the student is responding as expected. If not, we adjust strategies. This could include increasing reinforcement, changing the environment, or offering different sensory supports. Involving families and the student themselves is also important. This ensures the strategies align with both home and school environments and meet the student's needs across settings.